This is video 2 of a 3-part series where I show you how to create an index in Microsoft Word to put at the end of a document. In the first video, I went through the process of marking the entries that you want to include in an index and then build that index. And that's all found on the References tab in the Index group. First, we mark the entries using this dialog box here, and then we built the index using the Insert index here. Now in this video, I want to show you an alternative technique. It's a technique that not a lot of people use because they don't know it's there. It's not really that obvious in the set of tools they give you at the top here, but it gives you a lot more control over building and maintaining your index. We're going to use what's called a concordance file, and instead of marking and then inserting the index, we're going to use this insert index twice. Now this is what a concordance file looks like. It's just simply a 2-column table that you create in a separate document that you then refer to from your main document. Now the first column, the left-hand column here, contains all the entries that you want to mark within the document. So the places you want to record the page numbers for that are then going to appear in the index. The right-hand column shows you what's going to appear in the index. When you place all your indexed entries in a separate document like this, it makes it a lot easier to maintain. There's none of the clutter here of those XE index entries that we saw before, and you can see in an instant where you're at. Again, I've used 4 color codes here to demonstrate 4 different things. If you remember, the indexing process is case sensitive, so the concordance provides a really neat way to capture all those different variations with less chance of missing something. So where you've got single versus plural, where you've got lowercase versus uppercase, and where you have all the different word variations that often occur within a document. All those situations can be picked up, grouped together, lumped together if you like, under the same index entry. So look at the green section first of all. These are stand-alone entries. So what you see that gets marked in the document is exactly what appears in the index. So these pretty much are one-on-one. What you see is what you get. This next coloured section deals with a different case. So you can see there's a franchise there with a lowercase f and a franchise there with an uppercase f. Both of those are going to create marked entries within a document in a minute, but they're both going to be categorized under one entry in the index, franchise with a capital F. In the blue section, you can see in the left-hand column here, all the different word variations: trademark, trademarks, trademarking, trademarked, and again, the same 4 with uppercase T at the beginning. All of those are going to get marked within the document, but they're all going to get categorized under one index entry, trademark with a capital T. The last 3 here, we're going to replicate what we did in the first video. So 3DS, Switch, and Game Boy are 3 different types of console. So in the index, we're actually going to create a main entry called console with a sub-entry 3DS, Switch, and Game Boy. Notice the notation here. It uses a colon character, that's the 2 dots, between main entry and sub-entry. Don't use a comma, don't use a semicolon. Those are common mistakes. Those characters will not work. Only the colon character will work here. Also, a lot of people make the mistake of putting a colon followed by a space. If you do that, when you come to build the index, each of those entries is going to have an extra space in front of it. So unless that's what you want, don't do it. That's the concordance file. It's called concordance, and we're going to refer to that and pick that up from the main document in just a moment. So here we are back in the main document. It's clean. There's no current index. Let's go down to the bottom and take a quick look. Here's the index heading, nothing beneath it. Let's go back to the top again. And I'm also going to turn on the hidden formatting because that will show us when entries get marked in just a moment. Now, once you've taken the time to develop a good, comprehensive concordance, all you need to do is this. On the References tab, we're going to choose Insert Index. Now, in the first video, we came here as the second step to build the actual index. But when you're using a concordance file, you need to come here as well for step 1, because down the bottom is an option called Auto Mark, and when you click on this, it asks you to point to a file. And that file is called concordance, so let's select that and open. And immediately you can see all the entries that were in that left-hand column in the concordance have created marked entries here, the XE field codes, like we did manually in the first video, but it's happened automatically here. That's what AutoMark does. That's step 1 complete. So now all we have to do is to go down to the bottom underneath the index heading, place the cursor, and then again under References, in the Index group, choose Insert Index again, and then we just build the index exactly like we did the first time. So you can choose your styling down here, choose what you want to see and where you want to put it, and when you're done, Click OK. And that's the index built. You can see how much quicker that was to build from scratch. If you look here, you can see one entry called franchise with a capital F. That's exactly what we wanted. There's one entry under T, trademark with a capital T. That's what we wanted as well. And all the page numbers for franchise and trademark with all those different word variations and case variations, they're all categorized under the one entry in the index with all its relevant page numbers. Updating the index is just as easy as it was before. So let's go back to the concordance and let's just add one more row to this table. Japan on both sides. I'm going to save the file. It doesn't matter if you leave it open or close it at this point. So here we are back in the main document. Now we just repeat the process. So firstly, if we choose Insert Index, choose Auto Mark, we need to mark the new entries that have been added. Choose the same file, concordance, and open that up. If we just go up, just to check that the thing has been marked, we'll find an occurrence of Japan just here. And we can see the XE, the index entry field, has been added for Japan. So now all that's left to do is to update the index. Now updating is exactly the same process as we saw in the first video. If you click it once, it'll go grey. You always get grey shading behind anything that Word controls for you, which is always a good thing. At this point, you can either press F9 to refresh or update, or on some keyboards it's FN, F9. You could also right-click and choose Update Field from the context menu, or in the Index group on the References ribbon, you can choose Update Index. Any of those three will get the job done. Let's just click it up there, and you can see Japan has been added now to the index. Now here's the thing. Things that get added to the concordance get included in the updates. If the document gets restructured and all the page numbers change, they get included in the index updates as well. The only tricky bit is stuff that gets removed. Now, if you're removing a chunk from your document and you've got an entry in the concordance that says mark this thing, and there are none of those things in the document, that's fine. It just means nothing gets marked and nothing gets included in the index. But let's say in the concordance file, you decide to remove an entry. Let's say it's franchise with a capital F. You remove it from the concordance, but you've still got entries that have been previously marked in the main document, and they're still going to show up in the index. So in that situation, you need to clean house. Now you might be thinking, that's a lot of stuff to go through. That's a lot of stuff I've got to check, especially with big documents. Going through and finding particular field codes and then removing them one by one. Well, thankfully, there's a much better tool you can use to get the job done quickly. It's the standard find and replace, but with a little bit of a twist. So let's pull up the replace tool. Now there's two ways to get there. One is to go to the Home tab, go to your Find option over here, and then Replace directly underneath. That will open up the Replace dialog directly. The other way you could do it is to press Control F, which opens up the Find sidebar now. It used to open up the Find dialog. So if you're going to use the keyboard shortcuts, do Control H. That's the keyboard shortcut to go straight to Replace, bypassing the sidebar. Now I'm sure you've used Find and Replace before for content. But what we're going to do here is to use it to search for field codes. Let's get rid of Japan there. Now, if we click More, there's a few options added to the box here. And down the bottom, there's an option called Special. And there's all sorts of things you can actually search for here. These are generally hidden information, but Word will recognize them and will be able to find them and do stuff with them. And about halfway down, you'll see Field. Now, when you click that, it adds this funny notation into your Find What box. It's actually the caret character followed by D. If you wanted to skip the step of coming to this special menu, you can actually type that in directly. It's something you use quite a lot once you know it's there. And to get that funny character, you do Shift and 6 on the keyboard. What this notation represents is it's going to go through the document and find field codes. That is anything that's enclosed in those braces, those curly brackets that contain field codes. Because there's nothing else after it, it's going to pick up every single field code in the document. Now in this example, it's fine. The only field codes we have in this document are index entries. But if you've got other stuff like tables of contents, if you're using ask fields, if you've inserted dates, times or page numbers or file names, or use conditional logic, all of those use field codes. And so if we were to go through at this moment and your document had those other types of field codes in, it's going to remove all of those as well. So if you want to be specific, you can follow this by space XE, meaning index entry, and we leave the replace box empty. So now it's going to go through and replace all the field codes, XE field codes, with nothing. So let's go ahead and do that. Replace all. Click OK, 24 replacements made, and close the dialog. Let's scroll up, and we have a nice clean document. All the field codes have now been stripped away. So the idea is, if you decide to remove some entries from your concordance file, but there may be pre-existing entries in your main document. Wipe down, clean up, give yourself a clean slate, and then you just build the index and mark the entries exactly like we did the first time, which is on the References tab, Insert Index in the index group. Step 1 is to auto mark. That finds all the entries, adds the exe field codes, and then you come into this dialog box a second time, choose all your preferences if you haven't done so already, and then click OK, and that builds the index. It's such a simple technique, but it makes life so much easier if you take the time to prepare that concordance up front. Of course, you can also use that same concordance on other documents if that's relevant to do so. There's no direct link between the concordance file and your main document, so if you decide to rename the concordance file or move it to another location, it doesn't matter. It's only ever used to mark the entries in the document, and that's it. No more ties after that. So I hope this video's opened your eyes and given you a few more options. If you're working on large documents, this will be a godsend. And if you haven't used this approach before, why don't you build yourself a quick concordance file? Just mark a few entries using this technique, see how easy it is, and you can always build it up later on. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up underneath here and put a comment in the comment section. I love to hear what people think, and I read and respond to every message that comes through there. If you have any questions, put those in the comments too. If you want to see more videos like this, click subscribe, and if you're really keen and want to get notified as soon as new videos come out, click the bell and say how you want to be notified. And that's it for this video. Thanks for sticking with me to the end. There's one more video to go in this series. I'll see you for the next one.